Chapter 4, The Geography of Life. Why is geography relevant to life and evolution? By observing species and habitats in particular areas, we can compare and contrast to identify similarities and differences of how certain traits arose over time and why this may have occurred. Geography is also crucial to evolution because when combined with the fossil record, we can put the pieces to the puzzle per se and provide viable proof for the theory of evolution. Darwin himself considered geography and distribution of species so important to the theory of evolution that this topic alone occupies 2 whole chapters in his book, The Origin. Land bridges? Originally, some biologists proposed the theory of giant land bridges connecting continents, which allowed animals to disperse across those continents. Darwin grumbled at this idea due to the lack of evidence of their existence. Darwin's theory. Darwin believed that if species had ways of dispersion over large distances such as birds, this could explain why similar species arise in different separated areas. This theory by Darwin proved to be partially correct, however, as it did not account for the species that couldn't disperse over large areas such as large flightless birds, like the ostrich, for example. Today, we have many answers that once eluded Darwin thanks to 2 developments Darwin couldn't have imagined: continental drift and molecular taxonomy. Continents. Thus, the question arises, how exactly did large flightless animals end up in different parts of the world if they couldn't just fly there? And similarly, how did some of the same species of plants end up in different continents if they are incapable of movement? Supercontinent. With the modern development of the theory of plate tectonics and continental drift, biologists now understand and believe that continents were once connected and, as time progressed, separated. The fossil record of certain species as seen by the figure provides further evidence for this theory. Marsupials and placentals. One of the best and most well-known examples to back the theory of continental drift and dispersal is the similarities between mammals and marsupials. Based on the evidence provided by the fossil record, we can conclude that both of these species had a common ancestor. Once the supercontinent that this ancestor lived on, known as Gondwana, split roughly about 130 million years ago, marsupials separated and lived on what is now Australia and began to adaptively radiate in their environment. Oddly enough, due to similar environments/niches, both placentals and marsupials evolved similar traits over time through their lineage, though their lineage had diverged through the process we know as convergent evolution. The figure here shows the relatedness of marsupials and placentals, i.e., that they shared a common ancestor, as well as showing how through convergent evolution they developed similar traits despite being separated.
Convergent evolution. Convergent evolution shows us 3 parts of evolutionary theory working together: common ancestry, speciation, and natural selection. Common ancestry tells us why Australian marsupials share some features, while placental mammals share different features. In speciation, each common ancestor gives rise to many different descendants. We know that natural selection makes each species well adapted to its environment. These 3 ideas, added with similar habitats in different parts of the world, are a simple explanation of a major biogeographic pattern. Pangea. Pangea has become an important aspect to understanding evolutionary biogeography. Based on the scratches of land masses that correlate to each other and fossil trees, we know that everything was connected at one time. The Galossopteris fossil trees were dominant during the Permian era. Today, their fossils are in separate continents. It is not possible for these plants to have migrated over massive bodies of water to different continents. With this evidence, we can determine evolution from patterns of life on continents has a solid foundation. Islands. Acknowledging that the distribution of species on islands provides conclusive proof of evolution was one of the greatest pieces of investigation in the history of biology. Darwin's ideas were influential in the field of biogeography. He was able to acquire enough information to prove the importance of islands to biodiversity. Islands provide enough data that can be pieced together as islands once were that can prove the case for evolution. These are 2 types of islands we need to know to understand the island argument of evolution. They are continental islands and oceanic islands. Continental islands. Continental islands were once connected to a continent but later separated, either by rising sea levels that flooded land bridges or by moving continental plates. Examples of continental islands include, among others, the British Isles, Japan, Sri Lanka, Tasmania, and Madagascar. Oceanic islands. Oceanic islands arose from the seafloor, initially bereft of life, as growing volcanoes or coral reefs. Oceanic islands were never connected to a continent. Examples of oceanic islands are the Hawaiian Islands, the Galapagos Archipelago, St. Helena, and the Juan Fernandez Group. What is the island argument? The island argument of evolution begins with the observation that oceanic islands are missing many types of native species that we see on both continents and continental islands. The oceanic islands mainly miss native mammals, amphibians, freshwater fishes, and reptiles. Darwin believed that species such as mammals, amphibians, freshwater fishes, and reptiles became introduced to oceanic islands by humans and showed to be suited to oceanic islands even though they weren't put there from the beginning. This is why native species are typically wiped out. For example, in Hawaii, a poisonous amphibian from the America was introduced to control beetles on sugarcane. More to it, the other part of the argument is that even though oceanic islands lack basic kinds of animals, the types that are present there are often present in abundance and contain many similar species. We can see this in the way the Galapagos Islands habitat 28 species of bird found nowhere else, and 14 of these belong to the Galapagos finches. Based on the information we have obtained from islands, we can observe that life on oceanic islands is more unbalanced. This information allows us to understand that over time species learn to adapt to their environment, thus adapting new traits or mechanisms to conquer a habitat or maintain a sustainable lifestyle.
Hawaii, an oceanic island where it's strongly evident that species learn to adapt to their own environment in order to live a sustainable life. For example, honeycreepers and Drosophila. Adaptive radiation in Hawaiian honeycreepers. They evolved after their finch-like ancestors colonized in the islands. Just like the Galapagos finches, the Hawaiian honeycreepers have bills that are specialized based on their environment and food source that's readily available. For example, the aves have a slender bill which enables them to sip nectar from long tubular flowers, and the Maui parrotbill possesses a massive bill, letting them pry back and split twigs in order to find beetle larvae. Drosophila. Drosophilas are a type of a fruit fly that resides in the Hawaiian Islands. Due to natural selection and Hawaii's many islands, the island contains over half of the world's species of Drosophilas. Continents and continental islands versus oceanic islands. There are groups found in continents and continental islands that are not found in oceanic islands due to several reasons. It is possible to find plants, birds, insects, and other arthropods in oceanic islands, but almost impossible to find land mammals, reptiles, amphibians, nor freshwater fish. Plants, birds, and insects, and other arthropods are able to colonize oceanic islands through long-distance dispersal, whereas the latter group is not able to do the same. Plants are dispersed through the help of birds eating their seeds and later excreting their waste in islands during their flight, or through wind or water. Likewise, insects are able to latch onto airplanes, logs, and ships, and later be transported onto the islands. Just as the birds bring seeds of plants, they are also bringing and laying their eggs on the islands they travel to. In contrast, the animals aren't found in oceanic islands have difficulties traveling across the ocean as they're too heavy and unable to swim very far. Similarly, freshwater fish and amphibians can't swim in salt water for a long period of time. Not only are land mammals, reptiles, amphibians, nor freshwater fish impossible to be found, trees are rare to oceanic islands. Trees are rare as their seeds are too heavy and cannot float on water or be eaten by birds. Though dispersal seems to happen frequently, the probability of establishing a breeding population is extremely low. Over a million years, the probability of creating a breeding population through dispersal is only 63%. Distinct features of oceanic islands. Life on oceanic islands is in balance. They lack major groups of organisms, but possess organisms that are able to radiate easily. Species found in oceanic islands are also found in the nearest continent, even if their environment differs. Summary. Evolution is the explanation to why there is a large diversity of species on islands and continents. but it's also possible because of chance and lawfulness. Chance is the unpredictability of whether or not animals or plants would disperse into the area or be able to thrive and colonize the area. Lawfulness is their ability to survive by adapting to their own different types of niches. Although islands seem to thrive successfully on their own, they are unable to coexist with others, therefore making islands extremely vulnerable when attacked.